Coming up in just a few weeks, we've got the Western Outdoor News Troutcast at Lake Cuyamaca. This is a family fun trout fishing event at Lake Cuyamaca just east of San Diego, and we're giving away a potential $25,000. This is a stocked fish contingency program that we have at this event, but we're giving away Sea Eagle boats, Suzuki outboards, rod and reel combos from Fenwick rods and Fluger reels, Plano tackle boxes, Fraybill floating nets, and many, many more prizes. And hey, just for signing up, everybody will receive a Thomas Buoyant lure, a spool of Trilene 4-pound fishing line, and power bait. That's just for signing up, folks. All you have to do, visit WOnews.com under the Tournaments tab and join us for Troutcast April 23rd and 24th at Lake Cuyamaca. And who knows, maybe you'll walk away with $25,000. Courtesy of Suzuki Marine. Sign up now at WOnews.com.
When you look at the guys that get bit, it's the guys that aren't going to just sit there and wait for it to happen. They're going to make it happen.
Welcome back to the Western Outdoor News Podcast. This week, we're going to discuss the April 15th issue of Western Outdoor News, which is headed to mailboxes and newsstands as we speak. But before we do that, let's check in with Rich Garbarino to talk about his turkey opener success. He left a voicemail on our Western Outdoor News voicemail box. Let's hear what he had to say.
Hey, my name is Rich Garbarino, and I am calling to report my opening day of spring turkey season success. I went out to private property that I have access to on Friday to set out my blind. And then on Saturday morning, I got a little bit of a late start, and I didn't get out to my blind until about 11 o'clock, 11:30. As I was walking up the hill to my blind, I actually saw two gobblers up at the top of the hill. I thought I was totally busted and they were going to be gone. So I quickly got into my blind, grabbed my decoys, put them out, got back in and started calling, and then the two birds that I saw up the hill actually made their way down the hill. I could see them through the tall grass, but they never actually came out to where I had a clear shot, and then they just kept moving on. I called for about another hour, off and on, not a whole lot of calling, and I could hear other birds behind me in my blind, which was on the edge of a tree line above a canyon, and I could hear birds behind me gobbling in response to my calls. So I was probably in my blind maybe a total of an hour and a half, and then I could look out my back window of my blind, and I see a couple of birds moving across maybe 15 yards inside the tree line behind my blind. So did a couple of little calls here and there, and I watched them proceed to go past my blind, and then I saw them make a turn onto the tree line. And what I thought was one bird actually ended up being three birds. And they popped out of the tree line right into the open. The biggest one of the three turned and started walking straight towards me. And I was using my bow. So right when they made the turn, I very slowly drew my bow back slow as I could to not get busted. The bird turned sideways at about 15, 20 yards. I took a shot and hit it. It ran off. I went down into the tree line where I saw him go into the bushes, and sure enough, there it was, piled up. So it was put on the scale when I got home as a 20-pound bird. I got on opening day in an hour and a half of hunting.
Well, thanks again to Rich for calling in with that report. It honestly seems like this turkey season's off to a great start. I'm joined by Western Outdoor News editor Mike Stevens. You've been seeing all these turkey reports coming in, Mike. You think it's a good start to the season?
Yeah, from what I've seen so far, it's looking pretty good. I've seen a lot of this stuff out of the hills east of San Diego. That's mostly what I've seen lately, but I'm sure it's been just as good beyond there. The conditions were good going into the opener, so those guys are enjoying it.
Yeah, I mentioned last week that those turkey photos are like some of the most beautiful photos that we end up getting. They're so majestic.
Yeah,
compared to some of the
brought that up. I said for some reason turkey photos are always among the best hunting photos we get.
Yeah,
they set them up. Usually they're sitting on a log. They set them up with that fan out, and a lot of times there's kids in the photo. It's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of things that are good to see, let's look at the headlines this week. On the front page of the April 15th issue of Western Outdoor News, obviously we've got this big bluefin, and we've got the headline, Solid Bluefin Limits and More Yellows Offshore. So the offshore bite is picking up, and we're seeing more and more yellowtail and bluefin off the Southern California coast here, making their way up. Our rockfish counts are going gangbusters, and we're seeing some sea bass at the islands. So a lot of good headlines, a lot of good information in this week's issue. But if you're a subscriber or if you've picked up this issue on a newsstand, you'll notice that there is a supplement. And that's why Mike Stevens is here with us today to discuss the Eastern Sierra Preview. This is something that we put out each year before the Eastern Sierra Opener. So, Stevens, tell us why the Eastern Sierra Opener is a big deal to you.
It's just it's more of the symbol of the kickoff of the whole season, really. You know, a lot of people head up there on opening weekend, and it's pretty much a holiday for trout anglers in the West. You know, after that, it's kind of, you know, slow for the month of May, and then it's off and running for the rest of summer. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to get the preview out back into supplement form, you know, like it's been in years past, in a separate, you know, section that you can pull out and, you know, keep in your truck on the way up for reference. Me and Ernie Cowan did a lot of work on this one to get both an outlook on the whole season and a preview of the opener itself. Mm-hmm. So there's information in there on trout stocking, both private and state. Some of the hatcheries are going to be back. There's been some key businesses up there that have either expanded or changed ownership. So it was a cool thing to put together. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to people getting their hands on it. Yeah.
So not only that, we have the Eastern Sierra Roundtable. If you guys have been listening for a year now, you'll remember last year we were joined by Ernie Cowan as well and Mike Stevens again, and you guys discussed the Eastern Sierra Opener and just kind of the ethos behind visiting the Eastern Sierras. So Eastern Sierra.
Right. Now it's you know, I guess this would be the second annual Sierra Roundtable. We're going to bring in Marlon Mead from Berkeley, who will be here to talk about the Sierra. And between Marlon and Ernie Cowan, I mean, they've seen a lot more openers than I have by far. And, you know, they're both a wealth of information. Anybody who's been reading the paper for the last couple decades, you know, recognizes Marlon in his red jacket, you know, and you see him around in the Sierras every opener. So it'd be cool to have him in here.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned for that coming up. Now let's jump over to our main guest today. Sorry, Mike, no offense. You're not our main guest today.
Next time.
Next time. But our main guest is Brian Norris and Captain David Ortiz from Fin Fetish. They are going to break down the spring yellowtail tactics along with tons of other tips. He really opened up in this interview. We can't wait for you guys to hear it. Here it is.
Well, pretty much the only reason you're getting a hold of us right now is because of this wind. Otherwise, we'd be offshore at the islands. The fish are biting right now pretty much full speed at numerous different islands. Unfortunately, you know, I think we're coming back into the cycle of the spring, like heavy wind for 2-3 days. And then we get a little break, little window, get out to the island. And it's really good for the squid, which also turns into like pretty wide open fishing, early season fishing for the big yellowtail, sea bass, halibut, and whatnot. And unfortunately, it's like it's a catch-22. You get the really good fishing in the windows, but you have to cancel a trip here and there when the wind comes up like it is this week. It's blowing 5 days straight, 35, 40 knots. So we're obviously onshore here, handling our business here right now.
Okay. And so what is your business here? I mean, you are obviously on Fin Fetish. Can you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, it's Fin Fetish Sportfishing. We have 2-3 boats running right now. We have 3 boats, actually. One is a 78-footer, which is like more like a 3-day trip. And We have two 30-foot vessels, which are a Bertram 31 Flybridge convertible and a Crystaliner 33 Express. And those are our Go Fast Island boats. That's our like go-to boat for catching the big yellows, sea bass, halibut, and whatnot at various different islands. And those boats allow us to really get to the islands quick, no matter what island it is. We're located in Marina del Rey, California. So being centrally located like that, we can get out to Santa Barbara Island, San Nicolas. We can go to Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz. We do all the different islands from Clemente up. And that being centrally located like that and the Go Fast boats, we can get there pretty quickly and put you on the fish pretty much on a daily basis. It's just the wind right now is really killing us. And like our onshore business is like right now we're doing tackle and gearing up for the season and getting everything organized and all the maintenance, last minute maintenance done on the boats. So the wind's kind of giving us a little break to finish the last minute details to get ready for the season. And we're looking forward to a really, really good one. I mean, we have all of the signs from our preseason fishing here have been absolutely incredible. Like, I mean, every 30 minutes on average, we're getting a big yellowtail home guard 35, 40 pounder come through at the different islands right now. We have various hits on the big sea bass, kind of all alone because nobody's really out this early season type fishing like we do. Bite sport fishing is on their game, early season stuff too. And we fish different islands. So it's kind of interesting to see what they're doing at their islands, and what we're doing at ours is kind of like very similar. However, it's one of those things where you got to go in between the wind, and you got to be a little bit prepared for getting beat up for half a day. And then all of a sudden the wind will calm down, the swell will calm down, and all of a sudden you get bit until dark. So that's what we've been dealing with the last, like, probably about a month and a half, maybe 5 weeks, 5-6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, the weather this past month or so has just been so hit or miss. I mean, we had a 90-degree weekend followed by some rain, followed by some wind. It's just, we literally don't know what to expect these days.
Yeah, it
makes you guys have to be on your toes at all times, I could imagine.
Absolutely. It just makes us be ready out there. We got to read the weather, check our game, and really be prepared for all of this, you know.
Yeah, Captain David, he's my number one second that runs with me on 90% of our trips, and he's with us today here. Fortunately, he's like one of the top anglers on the whole coast here in California, and we're lucky to have him on board with us on Fin Fetish. And we, like, literally, we're not going to take you out for a boat ride. We want you to get bit. So when this weather comes up like this, we've canceled 4 trips this week alone. Reschedule them, you know, down the line, whatnot. But we're not going to take you on a boat ride to get you beat up. We want you to get, you know, the fish of a lifetime on every trip. That's our goal. And let me tell you something. This season has really, really, it's got all the signs of being one of the best seasons that we've had in probably 6 to 8 years, something like that, for the big sea bass and yellows at the island.
It's looking good.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you are seeing specifically that, because I keep hearing that this season's going to be big, it's going to be big. What specifically is leaning you in that direction?
Specifically, it's the island water temperature right now with the volume of squid that's at it. So we fished in the last 3 weeks, we fished 4 different islands, and every one of them is absolutely loaded with squid in numerous different locations where we've caught really big volumes of fish in the past. And so what we're seeing right now is like the squid volume and the abundance of it is just, it's really incredible. Like, I mean, surrounding the islands. And with that being said, that's going to bring in all the big yellows and sea bass and halibut. And I think we're going to have a really good season. However, like I said, this wind is like our normal pattern. It hasn't happened in 8 years, and now it's back, I think. And I think we're going to see this kind of, it's going to be here where you're going to have to just kind of hit that pocket, and you hit that pocket right, where the weather is down and the swell is down, and you're going to get bit full speed. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to. And it's one of those things where you just kind of deal with the good and the bad. And when it's good, it's going to be really, really good. I mean, all the times we've been bit full speed at the islands right now. And for that early season bite to be like that, it's something that tells me that by the time this wind kind of dies down as we pull into summer, it's going to be some incredible fishing.
Yeah. And for anybody listening to this in the future, we're talking about mid-April right now. So that's how kind of early into the season we are, mid-April right now. So speaking of the spring and transferring into a new season here, let's hone it in and specifically talk about spring yellowtail fishing. So what are your guys' kind of go-to tactics for targeting yellowtail specifically in the spring?
Well, what we kind of do is the key to it is kind of finding the where the super volume of squid is, and then getting on the edge of the zone there. So for private boaters, you kind of want to not sit in the squid bed, but sit on the edges of it. And there's so much volume of squid that's out there right now. You can't be sitting in the middle of it and expect to get bit. I mean, you got to get on the edges of the squid bed. Light it up, catch your live squid. And then, basically what we're doing is we're fishing 3 different types of techniques as we go into the season here. And most of the time, this early season stuff is biting right on the bottom of the seafloor. So we're using VMC hooks and Suffix line right now. It's our go-to brand that we're using. It's really super strong hooks, those VMC 2/0s. And we use circle hooks, and we use circle hooks for a specific reason. Because what we're doing is when we take groups out, we fish commercial style. So we'll put 8 rods around the boat, all in rod holders. And so that allows the fish to swallow the bait and swim away with it before anyone touches the rod. It's already bending and the hook's already set in the corner of the mouth. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that they don't really use that technique because they want to hold the rod in their hand and whatnot. And when you do that with a circle hook, your tendency is to pull the rod up and all of a sudden you miss the bite because you pulled the hook out of the mouth. The fish has to swim away with the hook in order to set that hook really good in the corner of its mouth. And we're fishing tight drag. We're fishing 50-pound line. And we fish that 50-pound line for a specific reason. It holds the bait away from the main line when you're using a spider hitch, which is our go-to knot as well for the dropper loop. We do not fish a dropper loop traditional style. We fish a spider hitch with minimum 50-pound test. And then that actually, when it's doubled up like that, holds the squid away from the main line, and it allows the fish to swallow the bait, swim away from the boat. And as it's swimming away, before anyone touches it, it's going to be full speed, like ripper bite before anyone actually lifts the rod out of the rod holder. And that allows us to really catch a way more, our percentage rate's probably 90% on that. And if they were to hold the rod, it would be about 50%. So that's what we're currently using. Like I said, it's 50 pound mono that we're using. There's no, at those outer islands, there's no need for the fluorocarbon. We're using the Suffix 50-pound mono and the VMC 2/0 hooks, and the circle hooks 3X strong. So those things really hold really well. Set the hook in the corner of the mouth and gives the angler a really good opportunity to catch the fish. Even if they make a mistake, that hook is in the corner of the mouth and really gives the angler the best chance to land the fish.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you guys have spent many days on the water trying to tell a guy not to set the hook because, if you grow up a bass fisherman or something like that, you have a tendency, you feel that tug and you just want to pull that hook right out of its mouth. And that's essentially what you'd be doing with that circle hook, right? Yeah,
Brad, it's true. Just to give you a little background on me, I'm actually a Florida boy. I grew up in Florida, and that's how I got into fishing, was bass fishing. Coming out here into the West Coast, I've been out here since 2009, and it's a whole different game of fishing. But just like Brian's saying, the circle hook is key. The circle hook is key out here, and just making sure you don't have to set it. They set themselves, and it's game on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so speaking more about this spring yellowtail fishing, we've talked about the hooks and the line, but what kind of combos are you guys using on, what kind of rod and what kind of reel are in your rod holder?
So we're using Penn Fathom 2 speeds at this point in time. I like the 2 speed because it has the lever drag. You could really kind of set it so that it's, it's not, the drag's not too tight, whatnot. The only problem with that when you have somebody that's not fishing the same reel every day like we are is that they push it to a little bit too far, a little bit too less, and then the hook won't set as well. So we really keep an eye on what everybody's doing when they're redropping baits and we're changing baits and whatnot. We constantly check to make sure that the drag's pushed to the certain exact point. We also use seeker rods, and we're using pretty much. We use Okuma rods too, so it's kind of a combination of different rods that we're using in different sizes. But the 40 narrow Penn Fathom 2 speed is our go-to reel because it's so versatile and it's a tank. I mean, that thing, we can fish it for 2 seasons and not even get it serviced. And these things are getting ripped every day with like big yellows and whatnot. And the drags are just like, they're bulletproof. And they really are like my favorite by far reel is that Penn Fathom, whether it's the 25, the 30 or the 40, all those things just fish extremely well, especially with the bigger fish. And you could feel the difference between that and a star drag reel. It's just that the drag is super smooth. That fish shakes its head. It goes out. It's gonna stay tight and it's gonna really give you the best opportunity to land the fish. When we're fishing the sea bass, we use a lighter rod. We'll fish like an 800. We'll fish sometimes a 196 even. When there's big sea bass in the zone, we'll fish 30 pound. We'll go down to 30 pound monofilament, so it has that nice stretch in it, and we'll fish like about a 50-foot top shot on the backing on that, and then we'll have the 196. Which has a super light rod tip that just bends the second that big, 60 pounder shaking his head back and forth. That rod tip it absorbs the head shake and there's no way that thing's going to break the line. And that's the key with the big sea bass is to fish that really super light tip, the fast taper. And the 196, to be honest with you, I've got 73, 78, 63, 65, 68. I mean, all my big sea bass have all been caught on a super light 196 rod like that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a workhorse, so to speak.
Yes. Well, it's a finesse rod. However, it's got a nice backbone to it and it's got that fast taper. So when that big sea bass shakes his head 1.5 feet, 2 feet side to side as it's coming up, it has no chance to like actually snap the line. And that's the key to. Ever since braid was invented, I went to the lighter, faster rod tape, like the fast taper rods, and it's proved like super effective. So that doesn't necessarily work that well when you hang a 40 or 50 pound yellow at the island. So that's the only drawback of it because they're mixed in, and then all of a sudden you get these big yellows come through. We'll switch the rods out immediately and go to a heavier backbone rod like a 270 or something like that, and really give us a better chance at getting those yellows in before those dogs get on us, because once those big yellows come in, the 800-pound sea lion are at the island as well, looking for that thing sitting underneath your boat, waiting to take it from you too. So you want to get it to the boat quicker, and that's why we use more like a 270 medium or something like that to get the bigger yellows to the boat quicker.
Yeah, you got to get them up quick, otherwise they they become a snack, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I can't tell you how many times that's happened where it's pulled it right off right as we're getting ready to gaff it. The big 800-pounder comes from underneath the boat and snatches our dinner.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so changing gears from one style of fishing to another, let's talk about your surface iron tips for yellowtail in the spring. What do you guys think surface iron? It's one of the most exciting forms of fishing out there. What are your techniques?
So when they're up on the surface and they're splashing around like that, we like to slide into them, get upwind of them, so you can cast down into them with the wind behind you. We're fishing a lot of the Salis 6X, 7X juniors, and 7X large. And those things, like the lights, are really, really good for catching those surface yellows like that. that's our go-to jig for sure. The 7X and the 6X lights. Without a doubt, that's our go-to jig for the surface iron. Let's talk really quick about the other techniques we're using for those when we're on the anchor and we're not chasing those things on the surface. While I'm thinking about it, we use float rigs a lot of times where we float the bait back, have a specific depth that we want to fish. We'll use a sliding float rig. You have a weighted, like a sliding sinker down to a swivel with a 5-foot leader of fluorocarbon, to a circle hook, and you have live squid underneath that. And then you have the sliding, float that slides up. Let's say I want to fish at a depth of 30 feet. We'll tie a nail knot onto the main line, with a little bead. And then we have that. So what you do is you cast it and get it down into the current. You have to have current to fish this style, but you get it down into the current. The float rig goes up until it hits the nail knot, and then it'll take it away from the boat. So you can get it away from the boat at a certain depth, and it'll constantly fish that depth without going up or down. And that's one of our favorite styles of fishing these yellows. We fish it numerous different ways. I'll fish a jig on the end of that thing. Even, you fish an iron on the end of it. Usually I'll paint it red, or I'll paint it different colors depending on what kind of, what's biting at the time. But you pin a live squid on it, and then, either a jig or just a regular hook. And then you have a sliding sinker down to that swivel, and you slide it away from the boat, put it back about 50 yards behind the boat, put it into gear. And that gets you fishing so many different areas around you. And that's key. You don't want to fish just directly under your boat. You want to be able to slide some stuff back into the current. So we'll fish different types of sliders as well, without any kind of float on it. And that'll slowly let the bait, flutter down to the bottom of the surface of the seafloor. And a lot of times just keeping it right there and put it in gear, it'll depending on the current, if you can match your weight to the current, which is key, because if it's too light, it's going to be up on the surface. It's not going to do anything. It's going to be fly lining. If you have too much weight, it's going to sink to the bottom, just sit right on the bottom floor. So you kind of look at the current, find out what it looks like, let that bait go back, sliding sinker, 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce, 2 ounce, half ounce, whatever it may be, to get it into that water column, and then put it in gear, clicker. And I'm telling you that we get a lot of fish that way that are 50 yards behind the boat, 70 yards behind the boat. We let it go back. And then, and that gives you that you're covering way more space, way more water column than you are just fishing dropper loops around your boat.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that I'm realizing as we're going through all these techniques is that you really have to be a really versatile fisherman when it comes to targeting this species. Is that you could be on the surface, and you could be, doing this technique, you could be doing another technique. You just have to be kind of ready for anything, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, when you look at the guys that get bit, it's the guys that aren't going to just sit there and wait for it to happen. They're going to make it happen, and they're going to try everything in the book and everything up their sleeve to kind of, trick these fish into biting or trigger them to bite. And a lot of times, like I'm telling you, if you Google giant yellowtail right now, there's a picture of us on there. The very first picture you're going to see is a picture of Brooke and myself with a giant yellowtail we caught at Santa Barbara Island last season. And go figure, it was hooked by Captain Ari Hamon, who's one of our captains that works with our team here, and he hooked on a bucktail with a. And people don't even fish bucktails anymore, but we do. We fish them a lot, actually. And we just got bit on it just 3 days ago and caught some big fish with the bucktail with a trap hook on it. And we do a stinger hook on the back, pin a live squid on the back of it, pin it through the jaw, like the little. It's kind of like a neck piece, and then pin it through the mantle of the squid so that it keeps the head located inside the mantle of the squid with the stinger hook. And you slide that, you cast that bucktail out, let it sink to the bottom, and slowly jig it back to the boat. And you get bit a lot like that. So then you're covering the sides of the boat as well. You have the current running downhill, obviously, if you're on anchor. You got the baits floating way back off the stern. There are different levels, different sea surface levels in the water column, and then you have your baits underneath the boat, which are like, we fish a lot of times. We're fishing 16 ounce, 12 ounce. We want them straight up and down, and so we have those surrounding the boat on the bottom of the seafloor, and then you're casting out on each side of the boat the bucktails with the stinger hooks, and then you have the floats in the back of the boat and the sliders sliding back there as well. So you're covering so much different ground, and you find out what's biting, and next thing you know, it's like you put 2 or 3 rods back there, and then you're getting bit nonstop. So, just sitting there and expecting it to happen, you might get a fish or two, but if you're starting to do what we're doing, you'll get 10, 12, 15 big hits on these things, because you figure out what they're really looking for, and you target that, and you key in on what they're looking for, and then you're going to get that big score.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned bucktails. I was actually organizing some tackle the other day, and I saw a whole box filled with bucktails, and I thought, man, what happened to these? I feel like you said, nobody seems to use them anymore. Any idea why? I mean, obviously it's working for you guys, but why did they kind of lose favor over time?
Honestly, I think it's more like a kind of like fashion, like it's nowadays with social media and everything, everybody sees that they're getting caught. People are using the hookup baits, or people are using this bait, and it becomes like a fad. Like everybody wants to, all right, we're using those. Everybody hop on these things. Everybody hop on those. And people almost forget about the stuff that actually works, I think that's what it is, honestly.
Yeah, the old school stuff like that is like, just because it's like not the hip thing to do right now doesn't mean it's not going to work. And we've been catching big fish on those bucktails forever, and it just so happens we kind of hit them again last season with them. And you do use the different sizes too. It's all about like finding out what's going to bite. Is it a 4 ounce one? Is it a 2 ounce? Is it a 1 ounce? Whatever the current is, it's different, and every time it's different. So you can't just cast it once and go like, hey, I didn't get bit. You fish it hard. If it doesn't bite, you get a lighter one. You fish it hard, depending on the current and whatnot. And so, as you say that, all I want to do is like send you some money so you could send me that box of bucktails. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I'm sure they're hard to find. What color bucktail are you guys using?
We're using a white bucktail right now. It's getting bit more than the yellow. However, as the season progresses, we do yellow, we do pink, we do a black one. It's like a combination. You got to see what's going to bite. And what second it bites like that, you throw like 2 or 3 on different rods and have everyone cast out, and then we're bit, I mean, it's all about finding what's going to trigger these fish to bite, and whether it's a bucktail or a slider or a float rig or whatnot. I mean, it might be just a straight up and down, dropper loops that's getting bit too. So don't limit yourself. That's my best advice to anybody that's out there that's going out to the island. You're spending a ton of money on fuel this year, and you want to maximize your productivity once you get to the island there. So try everything in your tackle box, and that's part of the whole fun of fishing anyway. And that's what we try to express to all of our anglers that come out with us and all of our friends. Is like, it's not just going out and, setting down one rod and just sitting there. It's like really trying to figure out what's going to trigger them to bite. And that's the whole thing we love about it. And that's why the name of my company is Fin Fetish, because we've got it's more than an addiction for us. We're so into it. It's like just figuring out every day what that little difference is that's going to make them bite is the whole fun of fishing for us.
Yeah. For years, and even to this day, my friends and I have this horrible habit of it. Well, it could be horrible or not horrible, but we have this habit of once we're actually on a bite and we're catching fish, we constantly want to change the lure or the presentation or something, even though we're actively getting bit. We're like, all right, what else have we got in here? And I feel like it's a bad habit because we're not just sticking to what's working, but it leads to so much more experimentation when you know that something just worked, that you're switching it up immediately. And of course, we kind of roll our eyes and laugh because it's like, why didn't we just keep using that bucktail or that whatever it is that we're using that was working? but it's also led to so much more experimentation. And like you said, that's like half the fun of it is like, okay, that worked. Now what else will work in this exact situation?
Yeah, exactly. You know, when you've got enough for dinner or whatnot, and that's when you want to experiment. And it's like, yeah, they're biting this one specific lure, specific color. Let's see if it's wide open enough to try this like crazy green, blue, whatever it is, jig. And that's part of the fun of fishing too. So like what we like to do is get the guys bit to where they're fully happy with what they're going to take home. So that everyone's got a lot of food to go home with, and that, you know, the wives are happy. That's half the problem.
Yeah.
You're stoked when they're going home and the wives are going to be happy. So then you know that they're going to let them come back out. But other than that, it's like, you know, once they've got the sack full or whatnot, and they've got their, you know, they're pretty satisfied of what the quantity they have to take home. That's when we really try to experiment like you're doing. And I wouldn't call that a negative thing whatsoever, because all of a sudden you might find something that'll bite 3 times better than the other one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it sometimes doesn't work that way. And then we're sitting there like, man, why didn't we just keep doing it what we were doing? But
yeah, but you never know. The bite might have just shut off. I mean, they come through and they're going to eat, and then they're going to feed, and then they're going to move on, you know? So maybe you just time that, you know, it's all about timing and everything else too.
Do you have a lure or a technique that kind of falls into that category of you'll only use it when you're really experimenting, that you're not going to start the day doing? Do you have anything like that?
I love the Cold Sniper. Cold Sniper, I have caught everything on it, from halibut, yellows, I've caught, and even black sea bass on them. That's something I'm always like, I think maybe it's time to put the Cold Sniper on and try it out, you know. Even from tuna, like they love it, you know. It's a great one to use. But again, it's a thing about trying it. Like what you're telling me that you like try one jig and you're switching it up. You know, every little jig or every lure, you might have to like twitch it differently, reel it in slower, reel it in faster, you know, like, so when you're switching them up that often, I can see how like you might be using the same technique on the previous lure and you're not making it dance. You know, it's all about the presentation. It's all about the, you know, presenting that lure right in front of them just the perfect way. So if you're tossing something in the water and you're moving it, or you're dropping it, or you're reeling it like slightly different than what it's supposed to be, you know, that's where a lot of the mix-up could also happen.
Yeah, that's where the fun starts, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about that. You know, experimentation's 99% of the fun for us. We want to try something different a lot, and it's like David said. You know, the Captain David, he tends to try to throw some different stuff out there, and then all of a sudden he'll twitch it just slightly differently, and you'll see it. It's just like all of a sudden that'll bite, and you go, oh my God, okay, I twitched it just like this, and then I'll cast it back up, boom, he's bit again, and it's like that's you know, for me that's 90% of the fun. You've figured out how to actually trigger that fish to bite, and that kind of brings up our bluefin kind of techniques when we have all these different techniques for fishing bluefin these days, and you can make that flying fish dance just that certain way, and you could fly it out away from the boat and have it skim across the surface. You're looking at it going, oh my God, that is perfect. And all of a sudden a 350 pounder will come out and just smash it. And it's because it looks absolutely perfect. And so whether you can see it on the surface like a flying fish like that, or you get bit in a certain way, retrieving a lure, whether it's a surface iron or a yo-yo jig, or, you know, I mean, any kind of lure that you're fishing, it's one of those things where you've really got to figure out what's going to work. And like, you constantly go like, that speed was just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we're bit. And then, so if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're not going to get bit. Or if you go 1, 2, 3, you're not going to get bit either. So that whole tempo of what's going to bite is what you try to remember, and how when they bit it is like key, you know. So that whole presentation is 99% of it, and it's 90% of the fun too.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to crack the code, and you got to spin the dial just right, and then you unlock something magical for sure.
That was said perfectly. Crack the code is exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
So we're talking about cracking the code, but let's flip it 180. So what are the most frequently incorrect things that you see on the water that, guys come out on your boat and they want to do X, Y, or Z? What are those things that you see and you say, hey man, that's flat out not going to work?
Well, one specific thing comes to mind right as you said that, and that is the line. And so when people bring their own gear, we discourage people from actually bringing their own gear on the boat, to be honest with you, because our stuff is all, super Sano. We know that it's all brand new line. It's all the best line. It's the VMC hooks. It's the Suffix line. It's like, you really, to be honest with you, it's like, we know for a fact when we hook a fish, that fish is going to hit the deck. And so that's what really kind of, then guys go, oh, I just put this line on this and that. And they're like, yeah, well, I go, did you tie the knots yourself? And they're like, no, well, the tackle store did or whatnot. And 90% of the time that'll work. However, I'll tell you, more times than not, we've hooked big bluefin on other people's gear, and the line's parted, the knots failed, and they're inner knots. They're not something that we've tied. They're knots that are connections from braid to mono or braid to fluorocarbon that just aren't tied correctly. Or the line is old and they say it's brand new and they just want to fish their rod, and all they had to do was say, hey, my line's kind of old, and we always have fresh line and everything on the boat. We'd spool them up with the Suffix and get them with the real good line. However, it's like the biggest failures that we've had have been hanging giant bluefin with somebody else's gear and having the line part, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a little crunchy, but it'll do. No, not quite.
Yeah. And so that's kind of one of the main things. But it happens.
Yeah. Well, that's that's one thing. Like you said, you're not out there to just go out on a boat ride. You want to get these fish on the deck. So, any other techniques or tactics that somebody might insist on doing, and you say, "I've never seen that work ever."
Yeah, it's when they hang a fish too. It's like one of those things where, like I said, we use the circle hook. So if they're holding it in their hand and they get bit on the drop, or they're just putting it in the gear or whatnot, the second they get bit, they'll swing on it, which you just don't do. And then a lot of times it's more of I don't think it's kind of hard to put it like this, but they don't realize, like, it's not a race to get the fish to the boat. It's what I call a Kodak moment. And the second you relax and go, like, listen, I'm going to get what I can get, and I'm going to give what they need to take. So when the fish is running and it's really, really pulling hard on you, you're not lifting that rod tip. You're just letting him do his thing. Let the rod stay bent. Don't let slacken the line whatsoever, obviously. But, you really got to just kind of let the fish do its thing. And we do really slow movements. We go up slow, we go down slow. So the left arm, if you're fishing right-handed reel, the left arm we lift slow. The right hand's wind super fast down, but you're dropping the rod tip slow. So that's one of our key, tutorial things that we like to do and show people is, like, it's not about like herky jerky and like pull hard and get them out. It's not, there's a lot of, I'd say 99% of the time we're not near structure. We're sitting on a squid bed, which is like flat, sandy bottom. And so there's not like you're worried about getting into the rocks or whatnot, which is obviously a different style of fishing than what we do. However, if you're lifting slow, you drop the rod tip down slow and you're winding fast with your right hand and slow up and slow down, the fish tend to not get, I don't know how to say it right. They're not going to pull and get more crazy. They're more settle in and start doing a nice circle if you're just nice and smooth with them. So it's like kind of what I say is, like, if you're going to punch someone in the face, they're going to punch back. But if you're going to kind of like grab them by the arm and kind of lead them in, then they're just going to kind of go, okay, well, this is cool. I'm going to go up to the surface here. And then all of a sudden we gaff them and they're on the boat. However, if you're fighting them and you're jerky and whatnot, you lose the fish a lot of times because then they want to fight back. You know what I mean? So we like a nice smooth lift, nice slow drop, nice smooth lift, nice slow drop until they're circling down. Get them nice and close to the boat. Keep their head in the water, which is really important. We just had a casualty the other day just from lifting the halibut's head out of the water, and we're like, keep his head in the water. The guy didn't know what it was and what we meant, and next thing we know, we lost like a 30-pound halibut. So that's key. Keep the head in the water. Let the other captain there get a nice gaff in the head and get him on board.
Wow. Well, yeah, I think that's a solid point to, in the moment where you're most likely to be the most excited and you just want to get this thing up and out of the water, to just calm down, relax. It'll come to you. Everything will be fine.
Slow as pro.
Yeah, exactly. Slow as pro. Well put.
There you go. Perfect. All right. So looking to the future here with this whole season, what trip do you guys recommend people to jump on? I'm sure Fin Fetish offers a ton of trips like this, but tell us more about this season coming up and what trips people can jump on.
Well, this early season stuff, we're recommending at least minimum of an overnight trip. That gives us the opportunity to fish throughout the night. We get you out to the island. We can catch our live squid. And I can tell you, more times than not, those fish will come through in the night, and we'll be bit full speed until the second the sun starts coming up. Not even that, till gray light. Right as the gray light starts coming up, it starts getting light. The bite shuts off, and you won't see another fish all day long. So this early season stuff is really notorious for that. And getting bit in the dark is I'd say 50% of our game this time of year. So we also do the 1.5-day trip, was what I highly recommend, which we leave at like 10 in the morning. We get you out to the island, like, depending on what island we're going to, between 12:30, 1 o'clock. We'll fish reds and rockfish and stuff and let everyone leave the island, which is our key. So we don't let them know where we've been fishing. So then we let everyone kind of get away from the island, and we'll go put the anchor down in a spot that we've been lighting up every single night for the entire, season. So as we do that, we find the highest concentration of squid on whatever island we're fishing. And we tend to set up in that one specific zone and light it up every night. So we're kind of feeding the squid bed, in other words. So the squid come into that light every single night because we're out there every night. So as we do that, the fish tend to know where that concentration of squid is as well. And it gives us the best opportunity to catch those fish. So what we do is we fish those reds and whatnot for the afternoon. We let everyone kind of slide away from the island. We go put the anchor down in our same spot that we've been fishing, we've been successful at for the previous trips. And then we'll light up the barbecue. Everyone will, crack a beer or whatnot. We'll start cooking. And sure enough, we put down all the rods right there. And right as those burgers are just getting ready to get done, all the lines start going off and ripping off the reels. So that's kind of one of our go-to, things with that 1.5 days. And then we fish until dark. Obviously, we put out the squid lights. We catch squid at night, and sure enough, they're 2 o'clock in the morning. The white sea bass will come in. If the yellows came in the afternoon, the sea bass will bite until 4 or 5 in the morning, and then those things will go away. And then the yellows will come back through at 5:36, and we're fishing all night. So we have one of our captains up all night long fishing, obviously. And that really gives us the best opportunity to catch those night fish. And then we fish the gray light, and hopefully the yellows will come back through, and then we'll go finish up with whatever rockfish we didn't, limit out on from the day before. And then we'll go put the anchor down again in the afternoon, and we get you home at about 6 o'clock the next evening. And that gives you like 4 tides to fish. And it really gives us the opportunity to kind of key in on when they're actually what the feeding pattern is. So if they're coming through in the morning full speed, then it's like that morning bite's really going to be good for our next trip. So we really kind of focus on that. And if they're coming through really heavily in the afternoon, if we only have a full day trip, we'll go, hey, we're not going to leave till 10 in the morning because there's no reason to get there early. We'll go there and we'll know they're biting from 4 to 8 p.m. And so that gives us such an advantage because we're out there and we've got 3 boats running. So we get a really good idea as to when they're coming through the feeding pattern for that particular moon phase and whatnot. So for an answer to your question in a short answer, which I know that was a long one, it's overnight, day and a half. And then if you can schedule a full day trip after a day and a half trip where we have live squid in the tanks already, then you have a good shot at getting it. And like I said, we'll do an afternoon trip as opposed to, leaving at 7:00 in the morning and get you out there by 10. I mean, what good does that do if you're going to get back at 7 when the bite starts at 4 in the afternoon and you have to leave at 4:00? So we'll time it and do the different things we have to do to get you bit. And that's kind of the key to our success, is really kind of being on the bite and knowing when the fish are feeding and what their pattern is. And a lot of times they won't bite the live squid. They're biting the fresh dead squid. And that's all the stuff we figure out just from being out there all the time.
Something to add on to that. Like, a lot of people always ask us, hey man, when's the best time to go? When can we go? Your day off. Book, just book as soon as you can. Don't look for the numbers. Don't look for any fish counts. It's really like, we run a whole different game compared to like the long range boats. So book when you can. Get out there. Go and fish, because the fish are biting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you know what I was going to say there, Brad, to top off what he was and compliment to what he was saying, was that, a lot of times back in the day, I would wait until there was no good counts and the fish really weren't biting all that well, because the next trip they're going to bite. And so when you wait for that, for that fish count to really go up, and all of a sudden everyone's catching fish, and then you go out and then you get nothing. Well, that's fishing. You got to go and just get out there as much as you can. And we're like I said, we're pretty much on the bite, so we know like when they're coming in and where they're coming in and what they're feeding on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, hey, after that whole walkthrough of your guys' kind of schedule, it seems like obviously you guys are out there constantly, which is the first important part. But not only are you just out there on a boat ride, you guys have this whole schedule dialed in. I mean, you have a reason and a rationale for every step of your guys' trip, which is just, it's so impressive, honestly.
Yeah, thank you for that. We take pride in that, and really, it's just a matter of being on the water. And when you're out there every day, you can kind of see the feeding pattern. And as the tide switches an hour every day later and whatnot, you go, okay, they bit at 4:00 yesterday. Watch 5:00. You're going to go. You sit there and you just go, watch what's going to happen. And the guys that are on the boat just go, I mean, this guy's crazy.
People look at it and think we're crazy.
They're like, all of a sudden, all the rods go off. They're like, how did this guy predict that? Well, shit, we were out there yesterday. And so we know that like they bit at 4:00 yesterday. They're going to bite at 5:00 today, So that's kind of the key to just being on the water a lot. Gives you such an advantage. And I mean, it kind of really gives you an insight as to what exactly is happening at the island on a daily basis. And you really get keyed in onto the feeding pattern.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's obvious, not only from what you guys are telling us, but the photos that everybody sees from your guys' boats and just the success that you guys have had over the years. It's been incredible and really eye-opening for everybody out here. How can people sign up with you guys? What's your website, your social media handles? Let everybody know how they can see what you guys do.
Yeah, so you can get a hold of us in numerous different ways. If you go on to finfetish.com, our phone numbers are on there. Both my brother, who's my booking agent, and myself, both of our numbers are on there. So if you don't reach us at one number, try the next one and someone will answer. We always try to have someone readily available to talk to you and to book a trip for you. Also on our Instagram is more up to date as far as photos and everything else, and it's more current as far as what's going on, because it's just faster for us to post on that. And that is at Fin Fetish Sportfishing under Captain Brian Norris, and that'll give you the really good idea. You can DM us on that. Just know that when you're trying to contact us, especially mid-season, the best way to get a hold of us is really text message, because we can receive text messages offshore with a satellite texter. However, we cannot receive any kind of voicemail calls. And a lot of times when the voicemail call comes in, we won't receive it till 24 hours later because we're offshore all the time. I don't know what the signal is or whatnot. And we get back in and I'll get a voicemail call from 2 days later. I actually come to my phone. So the best way to get a hold of us is to get us on that, on finfetish.com. You'll see the phone numbers there, and text us first, or the DM on the Instagram works really well as well. That is directly to my phone as well. And we have, we're monitoring that on a constant basis.
Okay, perfect. Hey, so if you guys want to go fish with Brian and David, you guys know what to do. Finfetish.com for all of your yellowtail needs. And they obviously know what they're talking about, as you guys heard the last 45 minutes here. All right, Brian, so David, thank you guys so much for joining the show today.
Keep in mind, Brad, that we have 3 boats. So we also have Captain Joe Morosco and Captain Wonder Lindesma, who is, these guys, my team that we've put together this season, along with Johnny Bochter. We have, and Ari Hamon. We're 6 different captains that are fully versatile in getting you bit at any island that's out there. And we're tag teaming with the different boats. So we have 2 boats that are fishing a specific island. We'll hit different sides of the island and communicate with each other and really focus in on where the best bite at the island can be had. And so keep that in mind when booking too. We have the boats running out there full speed, and we're ready to take you out and get you bit.
Gosh, yeah, no, hey, if you guys aren't excited for the season listening to this, then I don't know what to tell you, because this has definitely gotten my heart pumping. I'm ready for the season to start.
Yeah, you and me too.
A huge thanks again to Brian Norris and David Ortiz from Fin Fetish Sportfishing. I couldn't have asked for a better guest. We've got so much coming up here on the Western Outdoor News podcast. We hope to see you next week. And hey, if you want to come fishing with us, we have tons of wand charters throughout the summer. We have some openings still available, so head over to wonews.com. We've got our trout cast event. We've got a yellowtail jackpot. We've got tons of events coming up. Come fishing with us. Western Outdoor News. We'll see you next week.